Giving people just a second here to jump on to the live, give them time to sign on. Hi, everyone. It is Sue here in Framework in 5. This week, you selected the topic of goals, but in particular, monitoring and reporting. So I'm kind of the goal gal. So I love this topic. And so I decided to really focus on the 4 common problems that we see, these 4 problems that we see related to monitoring and reporting goals. So the number one problem is that you can't have a regular cadence of monitoring a metric if in the beginning of setting up or establishing the goal or the aim for an improvement, if you don't set up what the actual measurement is. So for instance, if you want to improve sepsis outcomes, you need to be very specific about what measurements you are going to monitor. And then also, what are the baselines? What are the starting points? And then what is the target or goal metric or aim? So people will say, oh, well, we want to improve sepsis outcomes, or we want to improve patient satisfaction, or we want to be more profitable. We want to increase our volumes. That's all, a good ideal. But if you want to have a regular cadence of monitoring, which is really important to having, great success with your goals, is you have to be very specific when you set up the goal or the aim in the beginning to know your baseline metric and the outcome metric. So what is your target? So if it's sepsis, we want to increase mortality by 50%. We want to decrease the progression from infection to shock by 50%. We want to decrease length of stay by 50%, and then have those metrics about what's your starting point and what does it mean to get that 50% improvement. So having that first step of starting with a really clear metric and baseline for your goal and the target. So that sets you up for success. If you have that problem of not being specific in setting up the goal, then monitoring it over time and reporting over time just isn't possible. So that is the first step, and people miss that step in the beginning. The other is to not regularly monitor the data. So not setting up a regular schedule or cadence. So don't just, say, oh, whenever I think about it, I'll check in on this, because pretty soon time has passed and you haven't done that. So really setting up a very, specific cadence of time. So maybe it's every other Monday, metric Monday, that you're measuring your data. Maybe it's once a month on the first of the month. Maybe it is once a quarter if it's quarterly data. So setting up that regular cadence and putting time on your schedule to make it happen. If it doesn't get on your schedule, if it isn't scheduled, there's a high likelihood that it's not going to happen. So how often are you going to monitor it and schedule it? Put that vital time, on your schedule and make it so. And then the third problem is that then once we do measure it, we don't know what to do with it, right? So the problem is, we don't act on it. So what do we do when we measure? So there's really, a main thing that we're doing is we're checking in, we're validating whether the action plans that we created to accomplish the goal, whether they're working or not, right? So hopefully if you set a goal for something, you set an action plan that's actually going to make that goal happen and get that result, get that improvement. So the measurement is actually your way for checking in, is our action plan working? So the real key here, and the problem that people miss, is they might measure, they might take the time to measure, then they don't do anything with what they measured. So let's say that the plan looks like it's working, the data is trending in the right direction. So then maybe we double down on our action plan and keep going and persevere. Maybe it shows that, nothing is changing, nothing's getting better. Then we need to think about, how do we need to adjust our plan? So that's a problem that people have, is, taking the time to measure, these measurements and follow up to setting goals, but then doing nothing with what they learn. And then reporting, transparently reporting. Sometimes the data gets, too confined, whether that's setting the goal and really letting everybody know what the goal is and the baseline measurements and the target measurements, but then that regular cadence of when measurements are updated is reporting them. Think about going to a sporting event and nobody keeping track of the score. How would you know who's winning, who's losing? How would you know? How would the coach know? How would the players know whether or not they needed to do anything different. If you're winning, you keep doing what's working. If you're losing, you start changing the plan and studying and adjusting. So the transparent reporting of data is really important to help people know what behaviors, what actions do I need to take. And so making sure that not only do you measure, but you transparently report the measures to all the people that need to know. Don't keep it just in a group. Don't just keep it with the leader. Put it out there to all the people that are, affected by this goal, contributing to this goal, need to do something to make it happen. So there we go, folks. Man, monitoring and reporting goal metrics, a really, really important part of the goal cycle. The goal cycle is one major tactic out of 9 that's part of our leadership bundle that our partners use to get great results with the framework for achieving great results. And I hope today's framework in 5 gives you a little more insight to this piece of the goal cycle. See you next time.